Now let's go over the other options that we have here. Next one we have is polar tracking. On a previous video I told you that whenever you hear polar, that means angles. So just by seeing the word polar tracking, you should know that we're talking about angles. And you can see it here on the icon. Right now, if I do a line, if the dynamic input is on, I can see the angle right there. You see it? It's 25 degrees, 26 degrees, 27 degrees, and so on. So it tells me what degree I'm on, but as soon as I type in the distance, I might lose the angle. So now the line that I did is going to be off, not in the correct angle. And just like ortho snaps, horizontal or vertical, whenever you have polar tracking, it's going to snap your angles. Okay, for example, notice right there, since I have it on, I'm going to move my mouse. When it snaps to 0, you're going to see a dashed line. Whenever you see that dashed line, it means that it is snapping to angle 0. Okay, so as soon as you see that dashed line, you can type in the distance and you know for sure that that line is going to go at angle 0. Well, you're going to say, well, doesn't ortho do that? Yes, it does. But again, since we're talking about polar, it means angles. So if I keep on going, notice that now it's going to snap at 45 degrees. As soon as it hits 45 degrees, you're going to see that line again. So automatically it's going to snap it. Whenever you see that line at that angle and I type in the distance, I know that that line is going exactly at 45 degrees. If I keep on going, I'm going to see it also at 90 degrees. If I keep on going, I'm going to see it at 135 degrees, and so on. So just by seeing that, you know that the increments are of 45 degrees. You see it at 0, you see it at 45, you see it at 90, you see it at 135, and all the way around until you get to 360. If you see this flyout button here, means that you can change that. Notice that right now 45, 90, 135, and 80 are selected, which means that it's going up at every 45 degrees. I'm going to use 30, 60, 90. So now it's going to snap at every 30 degrees. See, 30, it's going to snap it. 60 is going to snap it. 90. So you can change the increments of those angles right here. If I put 5, it's going to give it to me at every 5 degrees. It's going to snap at every 5 degrees. Now this is very useful because not all your lines that you're going to be drawing that are going to be horizontal and vertical. You're going to have lines at an angle, either for details, for windows, for roofs, for walls too. Okay, and they have to be to a specific angle. You can use the polar tracking for that. You can set your own. If you go to tracking settings, notice right now it says at every 5 degrees. They're there, the ones that we inputted. But you can do a new one. Additional angles, do a new one. Let's say I want to put at every 1 degree. Okay. See, right there. So if I select that one, the one that I just did, is going to give me at every degree. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can change those increments to whatever you need. Okay, so very useful. All you have to do again is snap it to the angle you want it. For example, let's say I need a line at 15 degrees. I just snap it and then put my distance. And I know for sure that this line from this point is going 6 units at 15 degrees because I snapped it. So for example, let's say from here I have to do another one at 60 degrees. I snap it to my degree using tracking, polar tracking, and then I put the distance. So I know it's going out from this point at that angle, and the line is exactly the length that I needed. So polar tracking is very helpful. It's going to make your life a lot easier. It's going to track your angles for you. Next one here, we have object snap tracking. What tracking means is that dashed line that we saw on polar tracking. So this one has it too. So for that, I'm going to do something like this. Let's say I did a line, any length, okay? And I need to do another line right above it, the same length. If I try to do it without object snap tracking, I wouldn't know exactly where to start it. See? If I need it right at the same length, right above it, I wouldn't know. I can eyeball it. I can say, okay, it's more or less right here. But do I really know? Well, I don't know. You know, it looks about the same, but if I measure this one is 7.1237. This one is 1231. So they look the same, but they're not. So in those instances is where this one comes very handy. Object snap tracking. When you have it on, let's say I need to do a line right above it. If I put my mouse or my crosshair at this endpoint and I move up, notice that you see that tracking line right there. So what it's doing is that it's snapping to that point, and now it's giving me a tracking. So it's telling me wherever you click, as long as that line appears, you know you're right. You are above that point. So I can do a line, and then how long should it be? Well, I can come here and then track it up right there. So now if I measure these, 1237, 1237. Okay, again, if I have a rectangle, and let's say I need to do a line right there, I can just put a down point, track it, start my line, come here, track it, and there you go. So that distance is exactly as that. Now this is a very simple way of using your object snap tracking. There's a lot more ways of using this, but I'm just showing you what it does. Okay, so it helps you, it tracks your points, so you can do your lines based off of another drawing. All right, and the last one, it's object snap or Osnap. Very useful. You're going to be using this a lot. What this does, if it's, well, you saw it right now. I did a line and you saw that appear, that square. That icon or that image or that visual tells you, whenever it appears, tells you you're right at that endpoint. Okay? When it's off, you don't see it. So let's say you're trying to do a line right from that point. So you go to line, you zoom in, and you think, it looks about right there. So you think you're right at that endpoint. And then you zoom in, realize that you're not. So you try it again. And it seems like it is, but then you zoom in, it is not. And then you try it again. And you think you are right at the point, and then you zoom in, and you're not. See? So for those instances is where these are going to come very handy, the Osnaps. If it's on, now you have several here. You can access them, endpoint, midpoint, center, and all these snap points. And you get a visual there. Endpoint means the end of the line or segments. Midpoint means the middle of the line. Center, the center of course of the circle. Geometric center, if you have a square rectangle, you'll find the center of that. Node is for points, quadrants for circles, and so on. We'll cover this more on our live sessions. So now let's say you need to do a line from that point. If you have your snaps on or your Osnaps on, as soon as you see that square appear, you know you're right on it. So AutoCAD is telling you I'm snapping to that endpoint, click it, and for sure it's gonna be connecting. So now if I zoom in, I am right at it. You see? Or you need to move something. We haven't not covered move, but let's say I need to move this. I can grab it from that endpoint and put it with that endpoint. So it's putting it right where it should go. Okay? So the Osnaps are going to be very, very, very helpful. For example, let's say I need to make a line in the middle of this segment right here. Since I have midpoint selected, notice that the actual icon changes from the endpoint is a rectangle or square, midpoint is a triangle. As soon as I see that triangle, I know I'm exactly at the middle of that segment and I can do a line. Not only I can move, I can make a line, but I can move. So I can put move, for example, get it from that, here is this line, get it from that midpoint, and for example, put it right there. So it's not only for drawing, it's also for editing. So my advice is that you use them, play around with them. I'm going to make a circle, and I'm going to have center. It is already selected. So that means that I can either maybe draw a line from the center of that circle. All I have to do is go to the center of it, and you'll see that circle appear. If I do that, I know I'm exactly at the center of that circle. Or I can move a line. For example, I can move this little line, for example, from the midpoint of that line. I can move it to the center of that circle. So you know how now it's very precise, very, very precise. And there's one more. For example, geometric center. Let's say I need to move this circle. The center of the circle should be the same point as the center of this rectangle. So I can go to, for example, move, get it from the center of the circle, and then put it in the center of that rectangle. So instead of trying to figure out how to do it, where to put him, doing math, calculating X and Y, you can use the Osnaps to move, draw, and to make them very precise. Okay, so those are going to be your Osnaps, very useful, play around with them, and you have several here that you can play around with. Remind me on our live session so I can go over some of these. Okay, any questions, please ask them whenever we meet in our live sessions.